Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So I feel like everything is built up to this. This is a more of an honor for me than anything else because not only am I a super fan, but I've learned more from who we're going to hear from today than I think anyone else. Read the books, look at the emails, get the updates, and truly constantly being educated. So thank you, Dr. Joseph Mercola, for joining us here today.
Well, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No, it's a pleasure and an honor. And for everybody, there's all these questions we've been getting about food. Every conversation we have around functional health, it's like environmental toxins. It's what are you eating? What are your hormones doing? We're getting down to the root, you know. And the big thing that's misunderstood that always drops jaws is like, oh, that's bad for me. Oh, I can't have oxalates. I can't eat chicken. It's like, what can I eat? There's the understanding of what is poison today is so it needs an update, and that's why we're here today. So thank you for doing that for us. I first got my eyes open to this. We were just talking about the biohacking conference 2 years ago. At the biohacking conference, you did a presentation on linoleic acid, and it was the first time I heard the word. Completely oblivious and jaw dropping in terms of the outcome and impact. So, if you don't mind, give us a little intro and about what we need to know there.
Sure. Well, it's not surprising. It's confusing. It's been a lifelong journey for me, and there's a lot of complexity to this. But when it all boils down, it's pretty quite simple. I've been passionate about optimizing my health for at least 50 years. And, I've switched things so many times because you learn new information. But ultimately, the more you learn, the more you realize it's really pretty simple. So the primary goal is to replicate what our ancestors were doing before industrialization. So
Yeah.
that's typically, there was some industrialization before 1870, but not much. So what happened in that time is that there was the culture obtained the ability to process seed oils. And it is seed oils. Many people know them as vegetable oils. They tried to give them a healthy name, but nothing could be further from the truth because the omega-6 fat in seed oils is one of the most pernicious metabolic poisons that I know of. It is probably responsible for killing more people collectively in the industrial age than anything else. What does it kill them with? It kills them with all the common causes of death: heart disease, cancer, diabetes, obesity, dementia. Those are the main ones. So, and it radically increases your risk. If you can really keep your linoleic acid levels down to the levels we had in like 1870, you pretty much eliminate your likelihood of all those diseases. And most of those diseases I just mentioned, they occurred, although they occurred at a rate which is, they were extraordinarily rare. Most physicians at the time never saw any of those diseases. Certainly heart disease. I mean, you can count on one hand the number of people who had a heart attack before 1900. Now it's the most common cause of death. So what is linoleic acid? Well, let's break it down to something that most people heard about, which is omega-3 fats and omega-6. They're both called, go under the umbrella of polyunsaturated fat, or a PUFA. And they have double bonds. So that means they're unsaturated. And these double bonds are highly susceptible to damage, typically from heat, excess oxygen, or other free radicals. And then they, in turn, the molecule itself of the omega-6 fats, and to some extent omega-3s, aren't intrinsically dangerous by themselves. But when they are in your tissues at levels that far exceed optimal levels, that's when all the damage starts. So historically and ancestrally, we only had about 1 to 2% of the fat in our bodies as omega-6 fat. Now, linoleic acid, sometimes called LA for short. In fact, the title of the book I was going to create, I actually had created it, but we had some conflict with the co-author and we had to abandon it. So it was the LA diet, not for Los Angeles, but linoleic acid. Linoleic acid consists of about 80% of the omega-6 fats. There are many other omega-6 fats, but that's the primary one, the one that we're most concerned with and familiar with. At least people have studied this. So, but what happens when these perishable, easily damaged double bonds are damaged, they turn into something called an OXLAM, which is an acronym that's short for oxidized linoleic acid metabolite, sometimes called ALEs, advanced lip oxidation end products, which is similar to AGs, as if it's much, much worse, advanced glycation end products, or AGEs that many people have heard of. So, and it's
Mhm.
these byproducts that cause almost all the damage.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of directions to go here, and one is that people, for the most part, I just talking to our own client base, for example, aren't familiar with which foods are a threat outside of seed oils. I heard you say that even chicken is a problem.
Well, chicken's a problem because it's the most common source of omega-6 fat in the American diet. Why? I mean, geez, I thought it was healthy, right? Especially, with all of the propaganda we received from the 50s on, thanks to Ansel Keys, that the low fat diet is the way to go. Well, it is actually beneficial in many respects because it lowers your linoleic acid. But what they encourage people to do is substitute white meat chicken, which is relatively low in fat. And most people know if they have chicken, it's unusual where a person doesn't enjoy the dark meat more than the white meat because it's the fat. And why is dark meat dark? It's dark because of the mitochondria. That's what colors the meat. Unfortunately, chicken and pigs, which is another common source of food in the United States, is they're what we call monogastric animals. They really only have one stomach and no additional chambers, as opposed to a ruminant like a cow, a sheep, a goat, a buffalo, a deer, elk. They have multiple chambers in their stomach, and these additional chambers have bacteria, and they are essentially biohydrogenation chambers. And that means that they can take a PUFA from the food that these animals eat and convert it to a saturated fat. Because saturated fat, unlike we've been told for 5 or 6 decades, is not your enemy. In fact, it's your friend. And if you actually need saturated fat to protect yourself from these PUFAs. So, as I said, if we were eating like our ancestors did pre-ancestrally, or at least had access, that's the only food we had access to, this wouldn't be an issue, because it's only when you process it and refine the seed oils, and this is the issue. I mean, chicken and pork are an issue for sure, but it's all the processed foods we eat. It's and ultra processed foods. So it's very, very difficult to find any processed food that's low in linoleic acid. Here's a shocking observation, is that most natural medical clinicians believe that sugar is the pernicious evil and that fat is fine, especially people who've adopted the keto perspective. And I certainly was included in that until I started growing a bigger awareness and realizing that carbs have been vilified in the natural medicine community. And to a certain extent, that's true. But for the most part, it's not correct, widely incorrect. Because if you look at the studies, and there are many of them that follow this very, very carefully and tease out the epidemiological details, the increase in the chronic diseases I mentioned seems to occur about 1970 or so. And we've been having sugar long before that. In fact, for the most part, the consumption of sugar has dropped dramatically. And in many countries, it's dropped to almost a teaspoon a day. But what has dramatically increased is the consumption of seed oils, primarily with soy and canola would be the top two, but also corn, safflower, sunflower. Those are the common ones. Anything that's a seed. And that would also include nut oils. And that includes olive oil and avocado, which we'll talk about in a minute. But sugar is only a problem for the most part. Anything consumed in excess is going to be problematic. Sugar is only a problem if typically it's consumed as not a processed sugar. I guess it's a form of processing, but sugar in the form of high fructose corn syrup, which started in the 70s, interestingly. And so, I was certainly part of the crew that said, no, you can't drink soda. And you should be drinking soda. But there are relatively healthy sodas. If you make a
Mhm.
soda with cane sugar, not sugar from high fructose corn syrup, but from cane sugar, the real cane sugar plant, it's okay. And there is like a Coke that they make. It's called a Mexican Coke. Hard to find in Mexico, actually, but you can get it in the U.S. It's pretty pricey. It's like an 8-ounce bottle, it costs $5, but it's made from cane sugar, and that's not a problem. In fact, Now, many people notice that they do improve when they lower their carbs, and I'm not disputing that for a short term, just because it's 95% of the population is metabolically impaired. They have lost the ability to seamlessly convert between burning glucose as the primary fuel to fat, and lowering carbs for a short time seems to be useful, but long term it's a disaster. But you really never, unless it's the only calories you have and you'll be dead, be consuming high fructose corn syrup. So that's what they use in almost all processed foods. So, a universal that is going to be true virtually 100% of the time is you just want to avoid at all costs processed foods. That's your danger. You want to create foods, but even within that, so say you're doing that, there's no processed foods. Well, you're going to avoid most of the high fructose corn syrup because that's where it's at. It's in processed foods. But if you're having regular healthy carbs, especially from fruits, that's some of the healthiest carbohydrates you're going to use from fruits, not necessarily vegetables. And again, this has taken me many decades to reach these conclusions. But vegetables can be highly problematic for many, many people. I know this is a tangent from an LA, but it's important to understand the carb versus fat perspective. So the vegetables frequently are associated with lectins and oxalates and biotoxins that are really self-defense mechanisms that the plants have because they can't get up and move. I mean, their only thing they have is to produce these toxic chemicals from predators. So especially in the seeds, because that's their reproductive organs. They could give a squat about their leaves typically or their fruit. And in fact, many of the fruits are encouraging animals to eat them and spread their seeds. So they're highly beneficial for the animals eating them. So it's very, very unusual where a fruit's going to be harmful for you, unless it was really high in oxalates. And there's some like kiwis and figs and dates. Not that you can't ever have them, but you don't want to have a lot of them because the oxalates are a big issue when we do not have enough time to talk about it. But Sally Norton is a real expert in this field. So anyway, carbs are healthy. Just stay away from healthy high fructose corn syrup and you're going to be good. But saying you had the good, healthy carbs. Why is high fructose corn syrup a problem? I didn't know. I just found out recently. It's because it's filtered from corn and there's starch in high fructose corn syrup that is not filtered out. It's in there and it's not in the list of ingredients. And there's typically more of this carbohydrate in there than there is the sugar. So it's the byproducts from the processing that is not listed on the label that causes the damage. That's why you never want to have high fructose corn syrup and avoid it like the plague. So that was an important point I wanted to make. And then,
Yeah,
yeah, any question on that?
that's one of the things we see. We see that over and over again where there's certain foods that are seemingly harmless when you look at the label, but when you understand that the what has been added in terms of processing is not required to be listed as an ingredient because it's not technically an ingredient, it's a processing. Yeah, totally legal. A natural flavor requires 50 to 100 chemicals to process it to get it into your food, and none of them are listed as ingredients, and you're consuming all of them, right? And I used to actually get a little bit of brain fog and even a little bit of pain from drinking this carbonated drink that was like water, stevia, and natural flavor, and I thought I was doing okay. Yeah, and it was this, and also genetically, I'm missing some key gut detox genes, so I'm a little more susceptible. But anyway, so we got to be very careful about understanding processing beyond just the ingredients. And having said that, you have knowledge that I've seen far beyond most, where we wanted to go next in terms of we just spoke about all of what we're dealing with and being cognizant of the reality of food and knowing what to look for and some problems that you maybe not thinking of. Then there's what's coming, and you have this sort of looking glass into what's going on and sort of big food and the next layer of food as medicine and industrialized food and things that we are going to be pitched as the solution, but are just more problems.
The fake foods, and I don't think we really have time to go into it, but essentially these fake foods like fake meat and fake milk, like Bio Milk and Beyond Meat and Impossible Burger, they think they just magically create them from thin air or these, but they're not. They actually have to have raw materials, and typically guess what the raw material for the fat, instead of the healthy saturated fat that you have in ruminant animals, you have seed oils as your fat. So they're taking
Wow.
healthy animals and trying to give people a beef, a hamburger, and making it from soy oil. It's just a crime against humanity. So, but I want to continue with helping people understand the difference with the seed
Sure.
oil. So, one of the other astonishing observations is that they last in your tissues for a long, long time. So you can get rid of an insulin spike within a day or two. I mean, certainly within days. I mean, it's not even weeks, months, and certainly not years. But you know how long the seed oils that you eat last in your tissues for? If you were to get rid of, say, 95% of them, how long would it take? Because there's a half-life issue.
No idea.
Or the half-life is 680 days. So that means it takes you 7 years to get them out of your tissues. 7 years. Yeah. So that's why you want to start now, and you want to be really have OCD on this, really get aggressive about it, because we are dealing with a serious issue, because the average person watching this has literally 10 to 20 times as much linoleic acid in their tissue as they need to stay optimally healthy. The goal is like 1 to 2%, and there is no blood test you can use. I mean, there are tests that you can use, but they have the wrong normals. The ideal is to do a fat biopsy from multiple sites, ideally. But most people aren't going to be doing a fat biopsy, but that would be the best way to get it. They're actually looking at, and this may be available relatively soon. That may be something to closely approximate that is an MRI scanner that can actually pick up that frequency and then measure it in your fat. So that hopefully comes within the next year or two. And you just have to get an MRI scan. So for a few $100s, you can give a real accurate assessment. But anyway, most people are looking at 10, 20%, maybe even 30% of their tissue is this very, very dangerous linoleic acid. So not only does it spin off free radicals, but mitochondria, as you well know, are really important for your health. And there's a specific fat that's only available in the mitochondria, and specifically in the intermitochondrial membrane. It's called cardiolipin. And like people have heard of triglycerides, they have 3 fatty acids in the tail. Well, cardiolipin is like a quadriglyceride, I guess, yeah, because it has 4 fatty acids. And these fatty acids are embedded in the intermitochondrial membrane. They're responsible for forming that loop in the cristae where they get that really sharp bend. If you've ever seen a picture of the mitochondria, you got these loops going back and forth. Well, it's the loops that have the electron train complexes, usually 1 through 5, and they need to be physically close together. So that cardiolipin is supposed to keep that curve really sharp. Well, if you saturate the fatty acids in cardiolipin with linoleic acid, you throw off the mitochondria's ability to form these super complexes, and as a result, your ability to generate energy in the form of ATP is radically decreased. The efficiency goes to hell, and you just radically decrease your vitality. So that's one really, really good reason. If you really want more saturated fats in there, because essentially they're impervious to oxidative damage for the most part. They survive. They got like a bulletproof shield. In fact, that's one of the strategies to improve your ability to remove these from your body, is to make sure you're eating saturated fat, because as the saturated fat comes out, your body will be metabolized as saturated fat rather than the PUFAs. And PUFAs are really dangerous. So in general. So we talked about eliminating chicken and pork for the most part. Now, I didn't mention why they are high, because they're not eating ancestral diets. Chicken and pigs were designed to eat plants, not seeds, not grains. But what almost every commercial pig and chicken is given, even organic chicken feed, organic hog feed, guarantee, look at the label, it's got grains, and it's many times seeds and oils in there, seed oils. So that's the last thing you want to do. And because they're like us, they cannot saturate this fat once they eat it. It stays in their tissue. So chickens typically have a little bit higher than beef. Beef is about 1 to 2%, maybe 3%. Even if they're a CAFO, a confined animal feeding operation cow that's given grains, they have these multi-chambered stomachs so they can saturate those fats. So even if they're not grass fed at all, it's maybe 3% linoleic acid, whereas a chicken's going to be 20 or 30%, just like a pig. So lard used to be a healthy fat to cook with, but that was, pre-industrialization. So now you do not want to use lard. It's better than some of the seed oils, but it's still not great. So the best fats to cook with are what? That would be ghee, I think is number one. It tastes really good.
Hmm.
A little bit expensive, but the highest melting point is much higher than butter. And then you can use beef tallow, which is somewhat problematic for a lot of people because it's a pretty strong flavor. But that's a really good one, probably better than ghee from a spinning off free radical perspective. And then coconut oil. Coconut oil will work. It's really low in linoleic acid, and it's mostly saturated fat, although it's a smaller chain fatty acids typically. Um, but it's a plant fat. So as a result, it doesn't have the other micronutrients like vitamin K2 and vitamin A or retinol, which is really, really important for health. So if you're eating these animal fats,
Hmm.
like beef tallow or ghee from healthy sources, you're going to get these accessory micronutrients. So you don't have to be taking supplements. If you aren't, then you're probably going to want to take those supplements to get these because they're really important vitamins, fat soluble vitamins. You're going to say, what about avocado oil? What about olive oil? Well,
Yeah.
they're lower than certainly most of the seed oils. But here's the problem: you have to get them pure. Now, we in my web store, we sell some of the highest quality avocado in the world. It's biodynamic, regeneratively produced, and I forget where we source it for. It's not. I don't think it's from the United States, somewhere overseas. But it's really, really good. But even that, which is like some of the best quality olive oil in the world, you don't want more than a tablespoon because it's still got linoleic acid. It's about 10%, and it could be up to 20%. Depends on the variety of the olives that are used to produce it. So, and the problem is that 80 to 90% of avocado and olive oil are adulterated. Well documented, no argument at all. So, it virtually every restaurant you're going to go and you have a salad and you ask for olive oil, it's going to be adulterated. So you're just like throwing
Yeah.
soy oil on your salad, which is just destroying your health. So you can have olive oil, but make sure it's a good one and only use about a tablespoon a day. I wouldn't use, it's not a magic cure all that a lot of health enthusiasts would lead you to believe who follow and recommend the Mediterranean diet. And it was good in the Mediterranean diet days when they were looking at it because it was a diet followed that didn't introduce these seed oils, and the olive oils weren't adulterated, but now they are. So even back then, though, they still weren't using tons of olive oil, and because it has some of the unsaturated fats, it's not really a great oil to cook in. It has a pretty strong flavor for most people, especially the higher quality ones that aren't diluted.
So that flavor profiles of this, need to train the palate is so important because people like what you're saying. You went to a restaurant, you ordered your salad, your favorite salad, you think you did the right thing, and it tasted like olive oil, but because that's what you're used to tasting, that you believe is the right stuff, which actually isn't. So go buy the good stuff from somewhere, train your palate, learn how to identify what's a problem because you're probably misunderstanding what's a threat.
Or just avoid it because olive oil is expensive. It's a lot more expensive than ghee, and I think you're going to be better off getting ghee. Or bring your own ghee. I mean, you go to the danger, a real danger for people is going to a restaurant. I mean, you are gambling. Uh, I typically I typically hardly ever eat at restaurants. But if I do, it's usually like steak or something because it's really hard to screw up a steak. Even a CAFO steak. In almost all the restaurants, it's a CAFO steak. It's not a grass-fed steak. But even then, it's still not too bad. It
Mhm.
may have some glyphosate in it because they said that glyphosate is contaminated in the grains. But if you're doing a good detox program, you get that out. And part of that would be a near infrared sauna and a lot of glycine so that you don't substitute that glyphosate into your proteins. The important point I was trying to make is when you go to a restaurant, I hold them my phone. I said, listen, I got a speed dial to the emergency room. I'm very sensitive to seed oils. And if there's any seed oil in this, usually I'm explaining this for a friend because I typically don't eat late at night. I very rarely eat after the sunset, but I can do that occasionally, but it's very rare. So usually when you go out to restaurants, later. So I'm not typically, just drink some water. So it's with a friend, I'll say this, listen, this is her phone. It's on speed dial the emergency room. If there's any seed oils in this, she or he is going to, there's going to be ambulance going to be here. It's not going to be pretty. It's going to be a lot of bad reputation for your restaurant. You don't want the embarrassment. So please go to the kitchen, talk to the cook, tell him this is very serious. We are not kidding around. So you're stretching the truth a little bit, but it is everyone is sensitive to things. It's killing you prematurely. So once you understand that and know that, you can say that convincingly. And you can make sure that it's cooked in butter or ghee. The classic thing is for breakfast. So, I mean, almost all breakfast foods are terrible except for eggs. But what do they cook the eggs with? 100% guaranteed. Virtually every restaurant you go into is going to be cooking in seed oils, vegetable oil, generic vegetable oil, which is primarily soy, canola, or corn, or a combination of them. Whatever the cheapest ones they throw in there, because they're there to make a profit. They're also there to help people, and not help them, but have them enjoy their meal. But they are not health food business. Okay, they're there to earn a profit, and they're not going to earn a profit if they're cooking your omelet in butter. It cost them, I don't know, it's significantly more, maybe up to 10 times more expensive than using the seed oil. So that's why they do it. It's an economic issue, financial concern. So you've got to be proactive, or bring your own butter. Have them here. But especially if they're making an omelet in front of you, just give them the butter. Sometimes they won't do that because they have laws or regulations. But or you can take the butter from the counter that they use to spread on people on the bagels or something, which you don't want to have a bagel. But use that to cook the omelet in. So you just have to be really, really careful. And I know it says, why should life have to be this way? Well, there's a lot of conveniences we get from this. And, they try, and the conveniences combined with reduced prices to make food more affordable. But the trade-off is that you're really sacrificing your health. So you may save a few dollars now in time, but you're going to pay the price later, guaranteed, with your health. And you're going to be disabled, crippled, your vitality levels, your energy is going to be diminished, and you'll regret it. And it's really hard to turn around sometimes once you have that damage. Sometimes the damage can be irreversible. Most of the time it's not, because the body's very resilient. And if you give it what it needs to do, and you implement these strategies like removing the seed oils and doing healthy strategies like sleep and exercising, drinking enough water, pretty simple things, actually. It's not rocket science. And doing some detox to get that stuff out of your system, your body will in almost all cases go back to normal. There's and taking some important crucial supplements, I think, would be another part of it. It's amazing because I went to med school, obviously, and have concluded that medical school got captured in 1910 with Andrew Carnegie and John Rockefeller, with the Flexner report, and they changed the whole curriculum. So it's not, it's really a prep school to teach you how to prescribe drugs, is what it is, for the most part. I mean, there's other things, but and you learn anatomy basics and physiology and other components, pharmacology, to learn to use drugs. They really have a system to identify disease, which is a compilation of symptoms. Typically, in almost every case, they're absolutely clueless as to what the real cause of that is. And it's almost physically impossible to treat a disease unless you know what the cause is. And they're clueless. They don't understand, because the core cause of almost every single disease, I don't care what the hell label it has, is going to be linoleic acid excess oxidative stress in your body with secondary mitochondrial dysfunction. So once you correct those, whatever disease you have, very few absolute statements are true, including this one, but virtually every disease you have is going to get better and improve, unless you're too far down the path. And that certainly happens. I mean, obviously people die from cancer, second leading cause of death. And if you're like almost dead and you're going to die in 3 or 4 days, it's too late. Your body has, most people have a significant resiliency that they can recover from that, but you can exhaust it. And when it's gone, you're gone. It's just a matter of time. But you don't want to get to that point. And almost everyone listening to this doesn't have to get to that point. You just have to adopt this basic foundational strategy that essentially replicates what our ancestors were eating a mere 150 years ago. And that's not long in the scope of time. I mean, humans have been, depending on what your perspective is, They've been around for many thousands of years, and some people believe a heck of a lot longer than that. So we're talking about 150 years.
Yeah.
It's a literal drop in the bucket that we have this radical change that literally was in our tissues at 1 to 2% at the most. At the most is now 20 to 30%, and that is just such a radical explosion and change that it's devastated our health. We are having epidemics of all major diseases that we never experienced prior to the 20th century.
From our understanding, our genetics are somewhere between 200 to 250,000 years old. Who we are,
Mhm.
and you would think so. Our current reality that you're describing, 150 years, but even just our current concept of civilization and modern agriculture and farming, that's only what 10,000 years old, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
And we're talking about 200,000 years of habits that we're wired for, where we haven't changed. The DNA is the same, right? And so our body is expecting that context and that nutrient delivery and that those habits and that sleep and that everything. And then you look at this blip in time that we now live in, these last 150 years. It's such a threat. Everything is a threat, including what you just described. So what you're talking about is, okay, cut it off, stop it right now.
As much as you can, get down to close to zero. It is physiologically impossible to get it to zero. Well, again, that's an absolute statement, so it's not true. But you can get laboratory food, that is compiled in a research lab to do it. But that's what you have to do, because in almost every single food you can eat, there's some linoleic acid, so you can't avoid it. It's there, but in healthy foods, it's less than 1 to 2%.
And is there anything you can do while you're adopting these new habits, changing, learning? Is there anything you do to, like, detox it, for example?
Yeah, detoxing is one. You want to make sure you're eating saturated fat. So you just don't go on a low fat diet. You want to make sure you have healthy saturated fat. So ghee will do that, beef tallow, animal meats typically have enough saturated fat. It's hard. I mean, that's a really good. And if you're going to eat animal foods, I would definitely recommend eating nose to tail, as Paul Saladino suggests, which includes the organ meats and the connective tissue. Organs are really hyper concentrated, essentially supplements of all the vitamins and minerals, so they're powerfully good for you. And if you're eating nose to tail, there's typically you almost don't need to take supplements. But the connective tissue, most people forget about. We used to eat a lot of it, like when people, like in the 50s when I was growing up, Jello was there. 50s and 60s, Jello was common. So Jello is connective tissue. It's got collagen, which has got glycine, hydroxyproline, and proline. And that is part of your connective tissue. And if you don't have sufficient, you're not going to get sufficient quantities of that if you're just eating animal meats or muscles, because it's not there. It's in the connective tissue. So you got to take a collagen supplement to get those nutrients. But it's just ideally, it's best to eat the connective tissue. It's not taste great. There's not a lot of flavor. It's chewy and kind of. But if you're having a steak, you want to eat the gristle. You definitely want to eat and swallow the gristle. Very, very important. So, because
Yeah.
that's connective tissue, that's what you want. It's a bit off of the linoleic acid, but
Yeah. So what does your day look like when it comes to, like, a Dr. Mercola meal plan? What is you wake up, what happens, and what does it look like till you're asleep?
I have raw milk, which is another really good food. Milk is excellent. It's not just for babies. It's a really healthy human food. It's the best source of calcium you can possibly get. Uh, and I think it benefits most people. Many people have milk allergies, dairy allergies, and certainly you wouldn't do that if you have them, but most of the allergies do because it's processed, it's homogenized, and it's pasteurized. So fortunately, it is not illegal to drink raw milk. It's illegal to sell it in most every state. But the workaround, the loophole that's valid in almost every state you're out there, is that they sell it for pets only. It says not for human consumption, and you could easily, and I mean easily, get it in just about anywhere. So that's a really healthy food. And it's got saturated fat. There's very little linoleic acid, even if the cows were CAFO cows, because they have that biohydrogenation chamber that saturates the fats. So I have 2 cups of milk a day, raw milk. I have 4 eggs from the chickens that I raise, that are chickens, commercial eggs, even organic pasture raised chickens. They're going to be high in linoleic acid. You're going to get 3 or 4 grams. They're about a gram, I think 1 gram per egg, somewhere in that range. Maybe.
Even a pasture raised
Oh,
chicken?
yes, yes. Now you can get the 75% lower if you raise your own chickens like I do. Actually, I just started raising some geese too, which is even better. I
Wow.
don't know if you saw a goose before, but pretty much they're really inexpensive to raise because they primarily eat weeds. They just eat weeds. They're herbivores.
Okay.
Yeah, they're amazing, and they make really big eggs. It's like 4 to 1. If you have one goose egg, it's like equal to 4 chicken eggs. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, you don't, but they don't lay as much. They only lay like one a week. So, um,
Okay.
but I have 4 eggs, and then I'll have usually ground lamb is my favorite for my meal. And then I have
Okay.
a lot, but I wake up and I have about 3 pounds of sliced watermelon. 3 pounds, not just that doesn't measure the rind. That's
Hmm.
just the watermelon that I eat. It takes me about a half hour to eat that much, but it's so good. It's one of my favorite foods. So I have a lot of fruit. I maybe
Wow.
have 250, 300 grams of carbohydrates in a day. And I have apples and pears and tangerines and cherries that I grow that are really high in vitamin C.
If you want to keep diving deeper with your prescription for life with the Unpilled podcast, make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. I've also written my first book, The DNA Way: Unlock the Secrets of Your Genes to Reverse Disease, Slow Aging, and Achieve Optimal Wellness. It's now available for pre-sale on Amazon. Take a look and enjoy, guys. See you next time.
You mentioned earlier this concept of, because you're talking about fruit, you mentioned biodynamic. What does that entail for people that don't understand?
Well, it's a very specific type of regenerative agriculture that was started by Rudolf Steiner, I think, in Europe over 100 years ago, and there's very strict standards to it. It essentially integrates animals into the landscape. So typically cows, but it doesn't have to be. You can do chickens and ducks like I do. So they're integrated into the environment, and it's this creating this regenerative cycle. Uh, and there's other standards that go by it, but it's typically obviously you have the same standards as organic, but it's organic on steroids essentially. But not just because you're not certified that doesn't mean it isn't that same quality, because there's a certain cost that they try to keep it low, but there is a certain cost of certification. But you need to essentially integrate animals into the whole system.
Okay. And you mentioned milk. This is interesting because, I mean, you understand things like cellular inflammation, and this linoleic acid is a killer, for example, in that area. You listen to people like, for example, Mark Hyman, and they straight out say nobody should ever drink cow's milk. Even it doesn't matter if it's raw or whatever. I drink it regularly. So why are they wrong about that?
Well, Mark's wrong about a lot of things. A lot of things. I've stopped many, many, many moons ago. So, I don't want to disparage him anymore, but I wouldn't trust almost anything he says. He doesn't really think out of the box. He just loves to regurgitate the conventional views. He doesn't think for himself. He's not an independent thinker at all.
Because I hear this all the time where people say they're told, "Oh, how do I get rid of my autoimmunity? Cut out dairy."
I'm not disputing that. That in some people that's the case, and it usually is there because they were taking processed milk, so that catalyzes it. And then when you heat the milk to high temperature, you physically change the character of these proteins or three-dimensional products, and you can develop antibody responses. There's no question. Some people benefit. I'm not saying everyone should drink raw milk, but if you're not sensitive to it and you haven't been sensitized by drinking pasteurized milk, then I would go for it. And some people have, and if you can't, you can't. It's simple as that. But it is a very good food, and it will give you a lot of nutrients. But I would stay away from the pasteurized homogenized milk. Just know your farmer. Know the farmers that the cows are healthy, because you can get sick. There's no question you can get sick. But if you have a healthy farmer, usually you're going to get it from, like, I would never drink raw milk from a commercial dairy, a regular CAFO commercial dairy. You want to get it from a grass-fed, small herd, like that, where the animals are well taken care of. They're not immunized or vaccinated, and they don't give them antibiotic shots and hormones and such. So that would be the way you want to go.
Mm. And another question that we get a lot is, there's some people that choose to become vegans for moral, ethical, whatever they're decided, could be religious. And then all of a sudden there's restrictions. Like when you just described your daily diet, it's all animal based, which it sounds incredible to me. I would love to do exactly what you're doing. But there's some people say, I just can't do that.
Well, I have some vegetables. I have cauliflower rice that I make. on a food processor and I cook it up with butter or ghee. And I have Brussels
Yeah.
sprouts. But that's pretty much the only vegetables I eat.
Right.
Oh, maybe an avocado
Yeah.
occasionally. But avocado is relatively high.
Yeah.
Even obviously the oil is high in LA, but so is an avocado. It's like over 2 grams they've been avocado. So I limit my avocado to
Oh,
less
wow.
than half. I mean, some people do 2-3 avocados. That's going to really, even though that's clearly the highest quality source of linoleic acid you can get. It's not processed at all. It's natural. It's pure state, but still it's going to contribute to the LA burden you have. Most of the LA that people eat is really seriously damaged, especially with some processed foods or seed oils, which is just horrendously dangerous food. I mean, it's literally a metabolic poison. I mean, they should have a skull and bone symbol on all of those bottles.
Yeah, no kidding. Often, the type of people that are listening right now, it's like they're starting their sort of health optimization journey, which means everything is kind of happening at once. Okay, I'm changing my diet, I'm changing my exercise, I'm changing my relationships, I'm learning all of these tricks and tools. And what we see, and I'm just wondering if you think it's the same here. Some people will start exercising and they release like estrogens or toxic estrogens that are stored in fat. What I heard you say earlier is that linoleic acid is stored in fat and adipose tissue. So or do you have that threat?
So yes, you bring up a very good point. So exercise can make you worse. So you have to be really careful with this, and you want to really inhibit lipolysis. And there's a few things that you can do with that. I'm a huge fan of an iconoclast, Ray Peat, who passed away last November, unfortunately, but he was a brilliant man, and I never appreciated it when he was alive. But he has some really good strategies. He was an early, and I do mean early, like 70s, understood the dangers of linoleic acid. I just understood this within the last few years. He knew it like 45 years ago. And I just, I was clueless. I mean, just like most physicians today, I didn't get it. So he has some strategies. One of them are just generally good things to do. Like most people seem to benefit from about 300 milligrams of aspirin, but it should be pure aspirin, not with like an enteric-coated or anything. And so there's a company called Health Natura that sells it as an aspirin powder, USP 99.5%. Oh, it's great. So you just put like 2 or 3 of the scoops in and make sure it's well dissolved and heat it with a meal. So that will inhibit lipolysis. Another thing is niacinamide, which is vitamin B3. It comes as a powder. You don't want it. It comes as a tablet too, but it's usually 500 or 1,000 milligrams. And it's a magical thing, niacinamide. It's taken at the right dose, which is about 50 milligrams 3 times a day for most people. We're actually going to make a supplement that has 50 milligrams. There's no one on the market that has it. We will have it available in July. But in the meantime, you can get a powder, which is really inexpensive, and get a 64th of a teaspoon. You have to order a special set of spoons, a 64th, which is 1/8 of a 1/8 teaspoon. So it's a tiny amount. And, you take one of those, just put it into water. It's a pretty tiny scoop, and you put it in water and just drink it. I mean, you just only need like a teaspoon of water probably would dissolve it. And it doesn't have bad taste at all.
Yeah.
So that also will inhibit lipolysis. And it will radically improve mitochondrial function and increase something really important that everyone's enamored with nowadays, which is NAD+. I know I was. A lot of people, unfortunately, are taking these NAD precursors like NMN and NR, which I would or even NAD itself as an IV or a patch, which I would strongly, strongly discourage. Those are going to be really expensive, like $100, $200 a month or more in some cases. Whereas niacinamide is about maybe $1 a month, maybe $2. So it's affordable for everyone. And it's more effective. It works a lot better. I interviewed Nicola Conlon, who is a UK molecular biologist, and it's actually available for free if you go to my Substack, Take Control of Your Health. And Nicola, Nichola, Conlon, Conlon. And we discuss it in great depth of why that works. She really got it. Because it basically is the food substrate for the rate limiting enzyme of NAD+, which is NAMPT. So, and if you go to higher doses of the niacinamide, you'll actually inhibit the longevity proteins of the sirtuins. So 50 milligrams is a sweet spot. It's really sweet, and that'll help a lot. Methylene blue is another thing I like. Doesn't particularly, it probably has some benefits for LA. It'll definitely, well, it's mostly for fatigue, and it's in infections, but the aspirin. Oh, and you don't, SSRIs is a drug that many people take, and that's really bad because it increases serotonin, which augments estrogen and makes this whole lipolysis issue worse. So vitamin A, I think, and vitamin E almost, that's a huge one, probably one of the most important. Vitamin E almost everyone should be taking this. It's really hard to get by food. Typically, it's mostly in foods that are really high in LA, so you got to be really, really careful. So I would take it as a supplement. When you take it, almost all the vitamin E is really as a supplement is not that great because they use just exclusive one isomer D-alpha tocopherol. What you need, that is an important one, but it shouldn't be the only one. There's like 3 other, alpha, gamma, and delta. There's 4 of them though, and it's the same thing with tocotrienols. So you want all the tocotrienols, and you want all the tocopherols, but you only want like 100 milligrams total, and the majority of that 100 milligrams should be alpha tocopherol, but not 100%. So small dose, taken once a day with fat, would be really, really helpful. Not only does it inhibit lipolysis, which is the breaking down of the fat and prematurely and burning it excessively, but it also helps protect against the oxidation. Because of these double bonds, once it gets released, the vitamin E actually protects it from being oxidized until your body can break it down, hopefully in a way that won't damage you. So it's a long journey. I think I've been on the journey now, coming up on 3 years, and trying to get my linoleic acid levels low. I'm looking forward to having the MRI technology to assess it, because I guess I could do biopsy, but not too happy about doing that one. But it's actually, the pain isn't that bad. It's just finding the logistics of someone to do it correct, because the sample has to be processed properly. If it's not, then the results aren't going to work. It's not a standardized test. You can't order it at LabCorp or Quest, so that's for sure. I mean, you can order the blood test, but it's not as accurate as a fat biopsy.
It'll be cool to see what you've been able to achieve, because you've been a proponent of this, and I know you said that the knowledge has been around for some time, but mainstream, letting everyone know you've been pioneering that.
Yeah, so there are people I know that taught me that did do these tests, and they've got their levels down to less than 1%. So it's possible.
So you really think if we all work on doing this, chronic disease goes away?
It evaporates or radically reduces. Essentially, you develop a bulletproof shield, because this is there's no question that excess oxidative stress drives everything. Oh, I'll tell you another one that's really helpful. And it's also helpful for EMFs, which is the use of a selective antioxidant in the form of molecular hydrogen, the smallest molecule in the universe, goes in there, and it will help your body. You're familiar with this, because it increases the NRF2 pathway by stimulating transcriptionally the AREs, or the anti-response elements from your DNA, activating them if and only if there's excess oxidative stress present. Because the danger of taking all these antioxidants, except for like vitamin E, because it's at such a low level, you're not going to knock out important free radicals. But if you take really other antioxidants like glutathione or catalase, superoxide dismutase, they work. They will absolutely work, and they may inhibit or reduce the formation of some really important free radicals. Not all free radicals are bad. You need some to operate your metabolism, and if you indiscriminately inhibit those, they can be counterproductive. So that's why molecular hydrogen I love so much, because it only will cause your own body to make its antioxidants like glutathione if and when you need it. If you don't need it, it doesn't. Those transcription factors are not activated, which is really cool. So that would be one for sure.
That is super cool. Yeah. That's super. And I haven't seen it commonly available anywhere. Like, where do you get it from?
Well, I think the biggest supplier in the world is Mercola.com. You can go to Amazon, just type in H2, which is the molecular designation for molecular hydrogen, or type in molecular hydrogen, and you'll get our link. So yeah, we had an early adopter. Thankfully, I met a brilliant scientist, now as a PhD, Tyler LeBaron, who helped educate me in this field, and it's pretty amazing. I mean, I take it every day. It's particularly useful because most people are oblivious, or choose to be oblivious, to the dangers of EMFs, specifically from their Wi-Fi and cell phones. So they're exposed to these low level non-ionizing radiation field continuously. And the molecular hydrogen works really, really well to mitigate that stress, which typically results in generating a free radical called peroxynitrite. And molecular hydrogen seems to be particularly effective for mitigating the damage from peroxynitrite, which is a free radical. Almost as bad, probably maybe collectively just as dangerous as hydroxyl free radicals, which is acutely more damaging, but it has a much shorter half-life. The peroxynitrite lasts about 1,000 times longer. So collectively, it has a broader range of damage it can cause than hydroxy, because hydroxy free radical only damages tissues or molecules within like a protein's length, whereas actually peroxynitrite can travel in between cells and mitochondria. It can travel around for a while because it lives 1,000 times longer. A billionth of a second is how long a hydroxy free radical lasts.
That's crazy. And when I think EMFs, I think about people worried about their children. So is molecular hydrogen okay for children to consume, or is it just a dose question?
Yeah, it is. There's no danger for a child or a pregnant woman because it's it doesn't cause your body to do anything unless it perceives there's some damage there already. So
Okay.
it's like you got a loaded gun, but it doesn't shoot unless there's a criminal.
That's incredible. I haven't heard of any other substance that
Yeah, it really is profoundly mind blowing how effective it is. And I think Tyler will be there at Biohacking in July. He usually is. He was there last year.
Okay, cool. And I mean, you mentioned your website, and people should know that, like I'm there all the time because the stuff that you've curated and put together, it's not just about here's your bottle of vitamin whatever. It's
You can have the best supplement program in the world, but unless you're following the basics, like I've described, this is, I think, one of the most important ones. But there's others like exercise, sun exposure, detox, sleep. And if you're not doing those things, the supplements are going to do squat.
for sure. This is a very eye-opening and an awesome conversation. This is exactly what we had promised people you would deliver. So I wanted to thank you for that. Really, this one root cause that is outside of our awareness that isn't being spoke of. There's so much we hear about, like you said, sugars, toxins. Yeah, it's all a problem, but there's just one underlying thing that nobody's talking about.
It's not the only one. I don't want to give it this sort of perspective
Yeah.
because the root protocols that you referenced, that's the protocol put together by Morley Robbins, who's really big on iron excess, which works terribly with excess LA. You've got those, it's a combination because like the linoleic acid is like the tinder that turns to fire, and iron's the spark that causes the linoleic acid to explode into a fire. But then the excess iron could be due to low copper. So and magnesium is also a variable, as is vitamin A or retinol. So it's a complex series of issues. I wish it could be easier, but we're striving to make it easier, and actually working on a project that may excite people. I know what's exciting me is that putting together our own LLM, or large language model, that focuses on works like myself and Ray Peat, Morley Robbins, where it captures all that, and you could ask it a question and it will give you the answer from all the compiled research of the three of us and others. So it's a real exciting project. I don't know if it'll ever materialize, but we're working on it.
That is awesome. I can't wait for that. I'll be on that thing all day.
Yeah, I wouldn't. Yeah. It's so confusing,
Amazing.
but the knowledge is there. It's just a matter of putting it all together, and but you just get some foundational basics. And the most foundational one, in my view, is lowering your linoleic acid content. I'm also a huge fan of, I didn't mention exercise in that list, but that exercise is, the older you get, the more important exercise becomes. I'm a fanatic. I exercise for like 2 to 3 hours a day. So
2 to 3 hours a day.
Yeah. Most every day.
And do you feel that there's an oxidative stress load on you because of that? Like, how do you deal with that?
It's relatively low level. I mean, an hour of that is walking, then another hour is stretching, and then an hour of resistance training. But low level resistance training, not high intensity. So with something called KATSU, which is a form of blood flow restriction, and you get the same benefits as doing heavy resistance training with not the load, so you don't get injured, and metabolically it keeps you healthy. So, I mean, we're designed to move. You either use it or lose it. Motion is the lotion that keeps your body going. So if you're just sitting at a desk all day, it's not going to work. I mean, you're driving, you just got to move. and your body doesn't care if whatever circumstances dictate that you do that behavior. But if you don't engage in movement, there are going to be consequences to pay. There really will be. And it's just the way the system works. I mean, it's not like it's good or bad. It's not prejudice. It's just you can't argue with biology or physics. You could, but you're going to lose.
Yeah. I know that I think it was like a week ago, there was this big article going around about how exercise has a 50% better outcome for depression patients and the best antidepressant medication out there. Like, they take the best pill with the best track record.
Yes. And in my view, the mental health benefits are pale in comparison to the metabolic benefits. And the way you feel and the vitality, improved vitality, and just the way you live life is radically changed by engaging in that. But if you're just retired and sitting down and playing poker or something, it's not going to work that well. Or fishing on a boat or sitting at the beach. See all these people, because I walk on the beach every day for the most part, and I see all these people sitting down, like getting sun. Now, getting sun is good, but why aren't you moving? Why aren't you moving? You can multitask.
Yeah.
You can get sun and walk. Amazing concept. I've convinced a lot of people to do that. But it's just surprises me that people don't understand that basic concept. Now, sometimes you have to rest. There's no question. I'm not saying to be obsessive compulsive, but sometimes you have to rest.
Yeah.
Your body needs it, and laying down is not necessarily bad, but it shouldn't be the rule. It should be the exception.
Amazing. This is an awesome conversation. I want to thank you. I know how valuable your time is, and the whole world's trying to get you to speak everywhere all the time, and you gave us some time, so I'm very thankful, and our audience will appreciate this. And everyone, I would urge you to go to the website, because I personally go there all the time. Beyond supplements, there's foods, there's other things. Dr. Mercola has curated amazing stuff, so you don't have to wonder, like, am I doing the right thing? Well, it's there on the website because he's looked at it and he's approved it, check mark, this is the right stuff. So spend some time there. Thank you again for joining us. This was awesome, eye-opening, and exactly what we needed to hear.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me.